Hello everyone, I'm Old Guardian and this is part of the documentation of my chess journey, learning chess as a 41-year-old adult and getting started with it. So the first thing I did, I went through Lichess's main practice mode, so just learning about the rules, learning about all the various moves that are available, learning about a couple of checkmate patterns. And after that I started to improve my tactics skills a little bit by doing a lot of chess puzzles. And I have found these chess puzzles to be a lot of fun. They are lot of thinking to be done about them, and they have really taught me a lot of things about chess, like looking for potential checks, looking for potential mates, looking for hanging pieces, pieces that are not protected, pieces that I could capture for free. And perhaps most essentially, something that I have noticed that a lot of new players do is that they play too defensively. So these puzzles have really taught me that when I'm even in a bad position, looks like I should be defending, I actually should be looking for ways to counterattack, because that's the way to gain the initiative for myself and potentially win the game instead of just losing more slowly. So a lot of interesting lessons learned from completing puzzles. At this point I've been doing puzzles for I think 9 days now. I have completed 373 of them with 53% solved rate, so obviously yeah, they can be tricky at times. And here is a small sample of what it looks like when I try to complete some chess puzzles. Yeah. So queen has taken. Our queen has checked. And that queen is protected by the pawn there, so the king couldn't take. And king escapes, so this should be some kind of a sequence that would result in mate, right? But I'm intrigued here about my options. Well, queen cannot really check from there, because that would end very quickly by the rook. What other options do I have? This cannot check. This is just a bishop. It's a light square bishop. That's on a dark square. We have a pawn here. If pawn moves to g5, then that would be a check. Pawn is not protected though on g5. So what would be black's response to that check? They have opportunities, of course, to move the king away. Or they have the opportunity to take the pawn. But what happens if there's a check over there? Because there's no further alternative moves. No, nothing else can take the pawn. I can't push that to be promoted, right? Can I? Because there's also a chance to take there. There's also like a chance to just move ahead. What is black going to do if I just move ahead? Now that's another intriguing option. Queen can't come over here. Just take their queen. King cannot enter. This queen is protecting all these squares here. This rook. If this rook comes in front of the pawn, well, I take the rook with the queen. And this pawn is actively hindering black, because it keeps their queen at bay. And this king is also bad for black, because it means that this bishop can't enter. Oh boy. But I don't see what black's counter move is to that. But looking at... Oh, I do have this queen here, right? We skewer the king. Is that useful? If king leaves the queen, then the queen is taken. So that means that the king would have to move here. Are we getting somewhere with that? Is that a better than trying to push for the promotion? So queen goes over here. He has to go over there to not abandon the queen. This bishop is holding these squares. That pawn is also holding that square. Queen is attacking here. Check from here. These squares are all held. That drives the king away from the queen. King has to leave the queen alone. Then I can take the queen and check again. Right? Is there somewhere where this would fail? They could move the pawn in front. Does that matter? They move the pawn in front, and I take the pawn with the bishop. Then the king takes the bishop, and then I take the queen. So they lose the queen anyway. I suppose that's the price that we're going for instead of the rook. I think. Let's see if the engine thinks likewise. Okay, yeah, that is the price we're going for. Is there... I didn't calculate this check. But this check just moves the king back over there. The king is still protecting the queen now. I'm thinking if there's some kind of mate sequence here. Pawn there. King would take the pawn. I don't see myself getting close enough to check there. I think the queen is the price, but let's see. The engine disagrees. Queen was not the price. I was incorrect. Then it's this check. It's not that check either. Oh. There's a check here as well. There's a check here as well. Oh, and this doesn't lose the bishop. That doesn't lose the bishop. It still loses the bishop. What was wrong with my original idea? We turned the engine on and... Why did this fail? Some reason why this fails. What is the reason it fails? Oh, because the king can move over there, and then it's still protecting the queen. I see. So that one did end up with me losing the queen. Didn't realize that. Alright. You live and you learn. There's just so many things, so many things. I think this is a fantastic game. The level of skill, even though computers have kind of solved this game, then still the level of skill in this game is quite immense. Alright, so we'll move the rook to the open file here, and also away from this file. And white responds with knight e4. That would not be a very useful check. That would not be a very useful check. So what am I after? I'm definitely after not losing my queen here. That would not be fun. Well, the queen is lost if it goes over there. Lost if it goes over there. Not much to gain from going over there. Lost in that square. What if I move the queen here? What will happen next if I move the queen to f4? Well, this pawn is unprotected. But white wouldn't have enough time to attack it anyway. Because once queen is here, then I could move queen over there, forking the king and the rook. But if I fork the queen and king and the rook, then no, the knight would take. So that's no good. I cannot really threaten to take the knight, because then rook would just take my queen. So those ideas are blissful fancy, but not really actionable. I also can't attack the rook from here, because the knight will take from there too. Knights are just such versatile pieces, aren't they? I also can't make an attack on their queen and propose to trade queens. I can't quite reach there. Anything I would do with the rook would just be ignored for the greater price. Unless it's check over there, but I just don't see what good does this do. Can't take with the pawn because the pawn is pinned. There would be one move over here which would allow me to get to the light square diagonal. But as long as this king is here, takes, rook takes, queen takes, king takes. Just no. That's a candidate. That one could be done. This one could be done. I don't know. Today I have felt that I just don't know anything again. But that's kind of liberating. It's often like that when you're learning something. First you think that, okay, you feel like you're getting hang of something, and then you feel like you don't understand anything, and usually that's before you gain another step. Another step forward. We're going to give this one a try. It was not correct. Was any of these moves correct? No. None of them were. Then I have absolutely no idea what the solution is. That was also available. Huh? So that's followed by rook e2. Okay, so we win the knight and we trade queens. I totally didn't see that. Okay. Then, what's going on over here? Black has moved rook c3, rook c8. And white has responded with bishop h8. So white is threatening a mate in one here. Well, there's some clarity in this position. I know that I'm just on the verge of death, so there are no quiet moves here to be made. Everything I do has to be very precise and useful for preventing me losing immediately here. I mean, there are still defensive moves. They could be like queen here. They go queen there. I take the queen. They take the queen. I take the bishop, and I have won a bishop here. But of course, if I do that, then they're not going to just blindly charge in. There are some good things about that move. Because this also attacks the bishop here. So even if they don't charge in, I mean, I could just take the bishop with the queen. Then they can take my queen, and I can take their queen, and cool. But there are also some other things I can do here. I can check with the queen. It's protected by the knight, so the king cannot take it. but the queen can rush in here to prevent the mate. Then if I were to take the queen with the knight, then the king takes the knight, and I'm losing a lot of material. Then there is this rook move over there. Obviously, like, the queen could take it, but then it would be mate. So they actually can't take it with the queen. So what could they do? These are blocked off. And then this rank is then blocked by the rook. But king has 2 available moves. And they probably don't want to go there. If they go here, and then I come in with the queen. Queen is protected by the knight. Knight is protected by the pawn. Actually, if king goes here, it's a mate. So rook goes here, king has to go there. Because now if queen were to take this, then queen could still take. But I could also go there, king goes there, queen goes here. And then the rook takes the queen. It's actually no better. Rook goes there, king goes here. Queen goes here. Check. Then the queen takes. If I were to take the queen, then the king would take my knight. I would lose the same amount of material, just in a more complicated fashion. There's got to be something more to this than this, right? If the rook checks again from here, the only answer is for the king to run into the corner. What if I check here with the queen? And they take that queen with the rook. And then I will take that rook with the pawn. And then the pawn checks. And that's a mate. Isn't it? Does it matter which pawn? It does not matter which pawn. Okay. Mate is a mate. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Like, that's the day when you just... The day when I just don't know anything. White has moved c5. Black has answered with an a5. And we need to find the best move for white. Queen and pawn endgame. Both have 6 pawns. They have like 3 islands. I have 2. Like, kind of like my pawns. They also have these pawns here on the same file. Overall, I should be in a fairly decent position. But how is this going to work out? Because the obvious response, pawn takes, pawn takes. Pawn takes. Or pawn takes, queen takes. We could trade away the queens. We could trade away the queens and have a passed pawn. This pawn would be here on c file. And it would become forest camp. Maybe. The only obvious not a move is that pawn taking there, because then I just lose my queen. What if I take that pawn and they take this pawn? And they get an advantage from doing that. No, that would be awful for them, right? I have this advantage of 3 pawns over 2 pawns on this side. Somehow I would need to make use of it. I do not know. Nope, none of my ideas work. Oh. Oh. b5. Queen takes. Now I have a passed pawn. Protected by this queen. That was a nice one. I totally didn't see that. Okay, rook g7. Followed by bishop taking the knight on b5. If I retake, the knight and then king takes. If king takes there, then I could check from here. But what good would that do? Because the rook needs to stay on the 7th rank, so that their rook can't take the pawn and get to moving. King would want to move around this barrier here. Can my king get to help the pawn promote here before black gets to promote here? I simply see no other way than for the pawn to take the bishop. But the interesting part starts after that. Because the king will take the pawn. Does my king just start moving upwards? Because all of these squares are blocked off for the king. So my king can start to move upwards. They start to move here. I take the pawn. They move here. I go over here. My rook is on the way. The king moves here. My rook is in the way. Oof. I could move the rook here. Now that the king is protecting the pawn. They wouldn't need to do all of that, right? Pawn takes, king takes. I start going up. This is past. This pawn is free to go. This pawn is running. I move, they move. I move, they move. I could actually catch up to them here now. And the king is protecting the pawn. Then I could take that pawn if it tries to run. That wouldn't get through. There might be something that I don't see, but let's find out. They start to go now. Oh, king doesn't take. Yeah, hey, that's something I didn't see. Yeah, king doesn't have to take this pawn. This pawn is nothing. Can I still run with the king? King goes, pawn goes, king goes, pawn goes, king goes, pawn goes, rook goes. I can still run with the king. I'm still in time. Right? Does that change something? No, right? It doesn't change anything. So all of that calculation and this most simple answer was the best. Well, yeah. Sometimes. So, knight h6 check. King h7. Ooh, I have a sweet discovered check available here. Got to love discovered checks. Like how about knight over here? King has got to move to one of these squares. And then the knight is covering these squares here, so then I can just move the queen over there. And then I would be taken by the rook. Yeah, that's no good. Unless the king moved over there. So the king is not going to move over there, right? Because if king moves over here, knight moves over here, king moves over there, then that's a mate. It's not even a mate, because the bishop can take. Whoa, 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 whoa. This game, so many things. So many things can happen. So we calculate again. Knight takes the pawn. So I don't actually know where the king is going to move into. It's always going over there, isn't it? Because I cannot follow up with this check because of the bishop. I can't follow up with this check because then the king will just strike back. And this is not even a check. But should the king move in over there, then I could just take here with the queen. No, yes I can, because the knight has taken that pawn. This pawn's gone, that pawn's gone. Now queen protects here. And attacks here. That same works no matter where the king goes. Yes. Okay, I have the king in the corner. Yay for me. What can I do next? I could check here. But that's not getting me anywhere. Then the king escapes there. But I still can't go over there because of the bishop. Oof. There has got to be a solution to this. There has got to be a mate here somewhere. Well, there are more discovered checks than that one. This is also a discovered check, so this pawn cannot take the knight. Knight is not the piece that is checking. So if we do it like this instead, then king has got to move over there. Knight over there doesn't really work, because then king just runs over there and takes the knight, right? Again, left with no path. This bishop is hanging, by the way. So is there some kind of... No, because here king just takes the queen. Is this a mate in tree? Knight goes over here. Discovered check. Well, that was actually... Everything that I have calculated has been terribly wrong. I could also move it over here. Then pawn takes. Then knight takes. And it's a fork. And king runs, and then I take the queen. Like that. Forks. And sacrifices. Sometimes. Well, rook f5. Okay, so black has attacked my queen. My queen has run. Well, what do I have here? Well, actually, that move blocks the bishop. Bishop taking the pawn and attacking the rook and attacking the square there next to the king. I can see a whole bunch of options. Like, bishop takes here. They cannot actually take with the queen. Because if queen takes, then rook takes. And this rook is too close to the king can just defend. This rook still has the pawn on the way. But bishop takes... Push the attack a little bit over there. Threaten the rook. Can they just move the rook? And then what? What if they just move the rook? Rook forks the bishop and the queen. And then there's pawn moving ahead. What if their pawn takes? Then I could take the pawn. Check. They could simply move the queen to intercept. Because then if I take the queen, then we just trade queens and pawns. That's not very useful. We're already a rook down here. Or we have a bishop and they have a rook, so they have some material advantage right now. I need to find a way to leverage my position. Queen can't go there because the pawn will simply take. There are very few places where the queen can go without being immediately taken. Queen just dies. Does it start with the bishop move over there? But like, in many of these puzzles, I can find ways to gain material advantage. And then the game says, dude, why take a rook when you can mate? And then I'm like, but this will eventually result in a victory anyway. And the game is not good enough. Try again. That's my personal experience solving chess puzzles. We'll give it a try. It was rook for free. King has just escaped my vicious assault with the knight. And I have been trying to push on the assault. Stockfish knows. And then there's a rook f4 being played. I mean, up to this point, these are from real games. So there can be blunders here, or mistakes at least. But the line afterwards is the engine line. It no longer bears resemblance into what's going on in the real world. Oh boy. Such a sweet fork, but I can't do it because I'm pinned. They have two rooks, queen and a knight. I have queen and two knights. I'm pretty deep down when it comes to material. I would need to find a solution to this. And pretty quickly. Or I'm just dead. And this knight here is just totally tied up into that defense duty. I mean, how are you even going to mate this? There are more holes for the king to crawl into than there are holes in a cheese. It is just an endless pattern of holes to run into. Although there are some limitations, these pawns are actually limiting the king's space quite a lot. And then there's this knight also limiting the king's space. So actually, if we could drive the king to the back row, there would be ample opportunities to mate with the queen. Start with some check. Well, that's easy for you to say. I mean, we have plenty of sweet checks here. Let me present you the queen f6. Yummy. Also, the queen f8. Yummy. And then we have the classic queen f7. Yummy. Which kind of leaves us with one check. That doesn't immediately result in the queen being very, very dead. And this check... Well, the king has nowhere it can go. So the only way to get through this check is for them to move a piece. They have two options. They can move the rook, Or they can move the pawn. Moving the rook would be sort of a bad idea. Because I check here, you move the rook. Well, knight is protecting that square, so we move the queen over there and boom. That would be game right there. Yeah, but if I win a rook, I'm still down in material. I have not even equalized. He's winning the rook enough. But let's see what other... I mean, I move here, so the logical solution, because they don't want it to be an immediate mate, is to block with the pawn. Now, if they block with the pawn, I would have the pawn takes here, check, but then I lose the threat on d6. So I have now opened up a path for the king. I kind of don't want that to happen. So what if I just went back to g7? Now that there are fewer pawns around. And king can now move over there. Queen moves here. If that's not a mate, then what is it? There has to be something wrong with my calculation. No, you block with the pawn. Then I go back. Then I mate here. Mate in 3. Yeah, like... This rook was being offered to me here. And I have done so many times in these puzzles that, hey, I'm going to win this rook, I'm going to win this queen. And then the game says, you loser. You should have just taken the mate. Why are you continuing this game? Why are you so bad? But it is what it is. What has happened here? Knight a1. Bishop d5. Knight takes the bishop. Why was the bishop fed to that knight? I am blissfully unaware why that happened. Well, we have knight d5 attacking the queen. We have attacks on the queen from this side, which will all end in my knight being captured. So those don't seem like a very good idea. I was also intrigued about threatening that square for potential checkmate in the future. But there's plenty of space for the queen to move into, so it's not really a problem for the black now, is it? Probably isn't. We have queen a8. And... Or you mean that after this threat, then queen a8? Yeah, that was a square that I was looking at there. But I'm just uncertain whether there is a way for black to escape that. And I mean, they do, don't they? If knight goes over here, then they move the bishop here. So bishop is now attacking the knight. And now if queen goes to a8, the king can move over here. And then my queen is staring at 2 rooks. Then of course we have checks. We have queen a8 check. Well, nothing can block it, so the king has to move here. And then what? Well, now my queen would be threatened by the rook. But then I could do the knight d5 after the queen a8. In which case the knight is now checking the king. But this queen is no longer covering any of these squares, so the king can just keep running. No big deal. And my queen can't get out. So my queen would be a little bit trapped over there. It could go back over here, but that's such a terrible waste of tempo to run back and forth. Then we have this check, and which results in the king taking. And I have no pieces here that can be any credible threats, so that doesn't do much. Then we have this check, which results in the pawn taking. And that exhausts my list of checks. I guess we also have this check, which results in king taking. Checking first, king goes here. Knight takes, king goes here. Knight takes. It's yet another check. It's like it's a gift that just keeps giving. All right. Well. All right, an early game position. What has been going on here? Knight d5. Queen withdraws back to d8. Bishop g5. Pinning the knight here. There's a lot of everything is focused on that e7. There's a bit too much stuff pointing at e7. I don't think that sludgefest would end well. Any way for me to put any threats on that queen without moving with the knight? Well, there's bishop f5, but that still isn't good because the only piece that can take from there, yeah, that doesn't work out. How about, or is this just totally crazy? f5. I mean, it's getting in the way of my diagonal here. But f5 means that queen cannot take that because then bishop takes. Do they have some kind of attack that just cripples me here if I do that? Queen here releases the pin on this knight. But is that good enough? I have to break apart this attack using all of these pieces that are hanging. I just have to figure out what is the best way to do so and what is the best trade that I can accomplish overall. We could back off a little, move knight there. The knight is protected, and the knight is protecting the bishop, so it doesn't even get me the bishop. Ouch. That's not good enough. Then there's the queen attack. We're winning a knight. Are we not? Is there any way to not win a knight here? That's the most straightforward way to win material. And sometimes the most straightforward way to win material is the correct one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Twitch channel.